All right, folks, welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline and number 38. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am excited to be here on a Monday night talking about the Denver Nuggets. Wanted to wait for Monday Night Football to finish up. The parlay hit. We're very excited about that. Thank you to BetOnline for that one specifically. Always excited for this particular aspect of the NBA season where it does feel like back to school. Everything's fresh, everything's new. It's like a homecoming or a honeymoon or whatever you want to call it, where everybody's just excited to be here. I'm excited to be here too. Got some housekeeping notes at the top of the podcast that I want to share. We're going to get a late reaction to the Cat trade as well to the New York Knicks. Was a big deal, and I'm looking forward to doing some other conversational topics as well. But really quick, before we get into all that jazz, this podcast, as you know, it's brought to you by the good folks over at BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Do you think you know your stuff? Head in on the $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every single week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of the $200K. When the game's over, head on over to their online casino to get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with some slots. Make sure to check out their website. Let them know that you came from Mile High Sports. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right. Time to get into it. First and foremost, some housekeeping notes before we talk about the New York Knicks Minnesota Timberwolves trade. I signed a deal to be on Locked On Nuggets over the last week or so. Didn't know that this was going to happen. Was very excited about the news. I love talking with, obviously, Swipa, who you see over here all the time. But Matt Moore, who is one of my best friends in life and also in basketball, Adam Morris is leaving over there at Locked On Nuggets. And if you saw the last episode that we did, that was my debut episode with Matt over there. So if you can't get enough of me over here, then go check out Locked On Nuggets and go check out some of the episodes that I'm on. I'm not going to do a whole bunch of cross promo because it's obviously a sensitive thing where you've got 2 different Nuggets podcasts. I want to make sure that both audiences are happy, that everybody gets as much Nuggets content and as much of me as possible. But that is just something that I'm also doing. So for everybody that's curious, thank you for tuning in last night. I'm going to be doing probably maybe 3 episodes over there every week and definitely 4 over here every week during the regular season. Episodes on Pickaxe and Roll are probably going to be at 10 a.m. on the live shows at Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. I'm looking forward to that time slot because it will often be after a game. There will be something to talk about for sure, and being able to kind of start the morning with me, get it out of the way, and then people that can listen obviously throughout the day, they'll be very excited for that, hopefully. I have so many different things that I want to be able to cover on Pickaxe and Roll, in addition to the things that I'll also be covering on Locked On Nuggets. So there won't be any questions as to what that's going to be. Going to try to get into the studio for some Mile High Sports podcasting as well. Going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. And it's just going to have a different feel. So again, if you're interested, go check out Locked On Nuggets and go subscribe over there. And if you are happy with my content over here, that's great because this is not changing. This is going to be exactly the same. Okay. Karl-Anthony Towns goes to the New York Knicks. Kind of a surprising move. It caught everybody off guard. It was actually fascinating because usually with trades like that, you will get 2 people breaking the trade, Shams Charania and Adrian Wojnarowski. This last weekend, I think it was, Friday night, only one person was doing that because Woj has semi-retired from the news-breaking game. He's now at St. Bonaventure. his alma mater, being a general manager or the head of basketball ops over there, which is just a fascinating breakdown. And I'm obviously glad that he's happy with what he's done, but now you only have one newsbreaker. So it was very fascinating to see the reaction from that. But Towns, like a big player, like this is a multi-time All-Star heading to the Big Apple to replace Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo over there. They're going to Minnesota along with a first-round pick via Detroit. That is a protected first-round pick, and I don't know if that's ever going to see Minnesota. I think it's top 13 protected this upcoming year, top 11 protected the next year, top 9 protected the year after that, if I'm not mistaken. So it's fascinating to see that kind of a breakdown with stuff like this. But I do think in general that it's kind of an odd trade for Minnesota to make. Everybody is pointing to the money for it, and I get why. I honestly get it, because what Towns was making, and this trade can't be officially completed because of the money. It's actually not enough salary that is being sent back to New York right now, or back to Minnesota right now out of New York. And so they're going to loop in a team like Charlotte. I think that Charlotte was the team that was named. There's a couple of ramifications there. But my initial reaction was that it's kind of a salary dump, kind of something where you knew that you couldn't afford all three of Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, and Karl-Anthony Towns at the same time. And this was a good way for them to break up Cat's salary a little bit and find pieces that could help them still contribute and try to win a championship. And yet, Karl-Anthony Towns was huge in that matchup against the Nuggets this last year. I don't think he was the most essential player. He was probably it's funny, like, which of the players do you think was most valuable for the Timberwolves in that Nuggets series? I think is a fair question. Anthony Edwards obviously at the top, and I think Rudy Gobert kind of matching up and with Jokic, around Jokic, consistently trying to affect the defense. I think he was the second most important. After that, you could make a case that Jaden McDaniels and the way that he impacted Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray was very important too. Maybe perhaps more important than Karl-Anthony Towns, but I don't think that that's a reason to trade him, because the entire reason why the Nuggets lost that series was because of how relentless and how physical and how dominant, especially defensively, the T-Wolves were. And they were able to do that with Cat at the 4. And like just the way that they were able to manage that, it was super, super impressive. And now you've given that up. You've given up that size advantage just a little bit. Yes, Julius Randle's a big, strong forward, but he's not a center. He's not actually built like a 5 like Karl-Anthony Towns is, who's like 6'11", 245 at various points. Whereas Julius Randle's like 6'7", 6'8", maybe 6'9", and in the 235, 240 region. It's just different, less imposing physically. And I think the Nuggets are going to benefit for sure. My initial reaction is this is great for Denver. Later reaction is this is good for Denver. Maybe not great, but good. And I think better than the alternative, which is the deal not happening. Minnesota's still dangerous. The spacing with Dante DiVincenzo is going to help their bench lineup and playoff groupings for sure. Like, he's going to be somebody that they could play next to Anthony Edwards. Feel pretty good about that. He could play at the 3 and with Ant at the 2, and then they go small and have Jaden McDaniels at the 4 and Rudy Gobert at the 5 and still be very good defensively, despite the fact that they don't have enough wing size. But I do think that this just adds some questions and some wrinkles to the fit. Like, Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert could work, but it also might not. And it's going to take some time to develop that chemistry, figure out exactly how that works. Gobert, like, he's not going to get in the way of much of what Randle's doing, just like he was doing with what Gobert was doing, or with what Towns was doing, excuse me. But could Randle get in the way of a variety of things that the T-Wolves are trying to do? One of the great things about having Towns, so you could just space him out to the three-point line consistently and he'd hit 40%. That's a skill. It's a very important skill to have. Maybe Naz Reid should start in his place and not Julius Randle. Maybe that's the key here with how late Julius Randle's kind of coming into the situation, would they start Naz Reid, who was the sixth man of the year last year, and elevate him and then bring Julius Randle off the bench as a super sub? Probably not, but I think people have thought about that idea as a solution. Could the T-Wolves trade Julius Randle if this doesn't work out? Is he somebody that they could actually flip and then turn into something a little bit more potent? I don't know the answer to that. I honestly think that if it doesn't work out for Randle in Minnesota, I'm not sure how many teams are going to be super excited about getting Randle for them. And then, like, names that are thrown out there that talked about with Matt last night on Locked On, like Tobias Harris, Miles Bridges. Like, does that really move the needle any more than Julius Randle does? Probably not. Like, you get worse in that situation. So they're a smaller team. They have less skilled size than they did before, and that is a good thing for the Nuggets. That is a good thing for Nikola Jokic. Yes, Naz Reid did a good job at times against him. Karl-Anthony Towns did a great job against Jokic for the most part. And it's having multiple bodies and multiple, like, relentless amounts of physicality that really affect Joker. Julius Randle will do some of that, so I don't want to take that away from him entirely, but it's just a little bit less. And I'm not sure if the margin that you get from Dante DiVincenzo is enough for that, because like there will be plenty of times where they just want to play Nickeil Alexander-Walker or Mike Conley or just have Anthony Edwards out there. Yes, their wing depth was pretty bad before. This makes it better. Does it make it good? I don't know. Anthony Edwards can make up the difference. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Will he make up the difference? It just makes his life harder. Julius Randle trying to figure out how he's going to fit in there. I'm really curious as to what it looks like, but it just would not surprise me if the T-Wolves got off to a slower start than expected. They will probably be good enough because they just have enough talent and their defense is what's going to anchor them. But is the offense going to be good enough in the playoffs when Julius Randle basically shoots 35% from the field? He's not a good playoff player. Maybe he's better in Minnesota. Hard to really foresee it. Let's take a break. When we come back, we are going to chat about takeaways for the Denver Nuggets training camp before Abu Dhabi comes around. Really excited to share some of the insights I have from Nuggets training camp over the course of these last few days. Wrote about some stuff, but I'm also going to break some stuff here. We'll be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. And we're back. Pickaxe and Roll, Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. All right. Let's get into training camp for the Nuggets. Actually, before we do, Cedric just popped in here. I'm going to let him ask his question. Does this trade for New York and Minnesota hopefully make it somewhat easier for the Nuggets to run to another ship? Yes. I do think that this eases up Denver's path. I still think that Minnesota can win a series against the Nuggets. There's no question in my mind that they could. Will they is the real question. And I just wouldn't be surprised if Denver feels like they are better off for this one. I've got a lot of Dallas fans in my mentions that like they think that they're now like they're still the favorites to come out of the West. And they might be because they came out of the West this last year. OKC is obviously like they should feel like they're the favorites too based off of what they did. But Denver's still that reliable team based off of their core. And if the core is healthy and things from training camp are what we think they will be, then I think that this run that Denver could go on absolutely could get easier. Okay. Training camp, practice takeaways. I've been to all 4 days of Nuggets practice over the course of these last 4 days. Denver had media day on Thursday. Then they went Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then left tonight to go to Abu Dhabi, where they will play 2 games against the Boston Celtics, one on Friday, and then I think one on Sunday. So it's going to be a little bit before they actually play. They are traveling out there. I think they're trying to take as much time as possible to get acclimated, to do some work out there. but it will be interesting to see what they do. Each of the 4 days of practice were different. They went very hard on Friday. They had a lighter day on Saturday. They did kind of a split 30 day on Sunday, and then they went hard again today and tried to accomplish a lot. They actually went pretty late in this practice today, and I was surprised because I figured that they had a plane to catch. But rather than that, they got after it, and there was a lot of interesting things from the scrimmage today. First, I'll just list the teams that we got to see while they were out there. Team Blue was Julian Strother, Christian Brown, Vlatko Cancar, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic. So no point guards, no Michael Porter, but then Aaron Gordon and Jokic on that group. And Team White was Russell Westbrook, Jamal Murray, Hunter Tyson, Michael Porter, and one of Zeke Naji or DeAndre Jordan. They split time while we were out there. It was fascinating. It was a fascinating experience. Every roster guy that I saw was there, played, except for Dario Saric and Jalen Pickett. And of course, Deron Holmes is out for the season, and Peyton Watson was out over the course of the beginning of training camp here. No, this is not Locked On. I'm solo. This is Pickaxe and Roll. This is you can see the big old Pickaxe and Roll logo there. But yeah, this was a fascinating watch. Everybody was very amped up. Everybody very excited to be out there doing a whole bunch of things. And I thought Jamal Murray, first of all, looked really good. Made a couple step back jumpers over Christian Brown and Julian Strother, just doing everything that he can off the dribble. One of the things that sort of stood out to me was just that both teams had to work hard for shots. I think the team that had Nikola Jokic, it was a little bit easier to work for shots because they could just dump the ball into Nikola pretty consistently. But with Russell Westbrook, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter, there was some driving. There were some nice dump offs from Russell Westbrook to DeAndre Jordan in transition, and he drew some free throws. That's going to be something that they're going to have to play around with and see if they can make happen. But thought that the group didn't necessarily get a bunch going downhill when in the half court with Westbrook and Murray, and that'll be something that I watch. One of the issues that Reggie Jackson and Jamal Murray had during the regular season last year is they weren't able to generate efficient enough shots. It was a lot of fallaways. It was a lot of step backs. It was a lot of off the dribble jumpers or just kind of leaning jumpers that were contested, or maybe some floaters in the paint that weren't all the way there. But the team had to work hard for those, and it's just kind of early on in the stuff, so I'm not going to make a big deal about it. But Christian Brown so far has run primarily with the starters. Strother has run primarily with the bench throughout the entire sort of training camp. There have been times where they've mixed some things up, but for the most part, what I've seen is that Christian Brown has been the 1, Julian Strother's been the 2. Russell Westbrook driving aggressively, drawing defenders. Nikola Jokic not necessarily looking to shoot a ton, more getting players involved. It led to a turnover, led to a couple tip passes every now and then, because I think the team understands what he wants to do a lot of the time. And so he gets into that mode where he wants to facilitate, and was basically running point guard during the scrimmage today. So not really a surprise that was happening. And then outside shots didn't really drop for either side. And that's not necessarily a surprise in a training camp situation, especially at the end of a scrimmage. But it's one thing that you're going to have to pay attention to. The Nuggets could go plenty of games this year where they just go like 5 of 20, 6 of 24, 7 of 30, something in that general vicinity. And shooting is going to be important. Julian Strother is going to have to shoot efficiently. And when the Nuggets actually get open shots, they're going to have to can them. They're going to have to put them down. And I'm very curious to see what it looks like with these different groups. And with this Nuggets team, they're going to go up against a Boston team in Abu Dhabi that is very strong defensively. And I suspect that both teams will be asked to play their starters a little bit more than they maybe would in a preseason environment. So there's going to get some action. Like, we're going to see pretty quickly what it actually looks like. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. One surprising name that has really jumped off the page in terms of the praise that he received today, Hunter Tyson. Played obviously in that stretch during the scrimmage. I don't think he got a shot, but he got an offensive rebound at one point and just doing his part on the defensive end. Bodes well that Hunter Tyson is playing, and he got some nice praise from Michael Malone and from Michael Porter Jr. That was kind of fascinating. I don't think I really expected Hunter Tyson to contribute much this year. Like, he's not necessarily in a position where he would contribute a ton, but I did make the case, I think a couple weeks ago or last week, about what would be the scenario that Hunter Tyson would need in order to get on the floor. And I think I did a pretty good job in terms of justifying it a little bit. But yeah, if Peyton Watson does miss some time with an injury, or if they decide that they want to take as much time with him as possible, Hunter Tyson has an opportunity to prove that he deserves to play. And if he is one of your answers shooting-wise, that would be really beneficial for the team. They could absolutely use that. And Michael Malone, I think, said it earlier today. Shooting covers up for a lot of sins. What that says to me is that they know that Hunter Tyson isn't the most well-rounded player in the world, but if he makes shots, if he can go 40% from three or better while he's out there, that makes up a lot of ground for what the Nuggets actually need at this stage of their season. So, going to be fascinating to see. I am also fascinated about how Michael Porter has looked. He's been impressive all camp. He looks swole. Like, that's just one thing that stands out. Standing next to him, sitting next to him, he looks big. And it's something I'm going to talk about in the third segment. I have a take that I think that he has to really follow through on. If he could involve in part of his game, that would really, really benefit him. Russell Westbrook's presence is also a very strong story for this team. I wrote about it earlier today on Mile High Sports. You should go check that out. Lots of things that Russell Westbrook has said, that other things have said about other people have said about Russ, that I think should bode well for what's coming up for this Nuggets season. And I understand that it could just be training camp speak from a lot of people, whether they choose to praise somebody or not. Like, obviously they're going to choose to try to build a bridge and make sure things are kosher and then develop some good team chemistry, not say anything bad in the media that gets back to a player, things like that. But I'm going to choose to believe that things are, in fact, going well. Like, I'm not going to choose to believe that this is just a fake scenario that is being concocted by all these folks. It seems like Russell Westbrook's making an impact. And if he's doing what he needs to do, then who knows? Who knows? How did Hunter look on defense during the scrimmage today? Didn't really notice it, and I think that that's a good sign. He's going up against Vlatko Cancar, Aaron Gordon. Mostly he was just guarding Vlatko and then not really having to do too terribly much. But I didn't notice it a ton, if I'm being honest. There were some other things that were really popping up. What else? What else on the docket here? Will Russell Westbrook kind of work out in the regular season? I don't really know. Like, I can see both scenarios happening where the team just they get behind Russ. They think it's for the best for themselves. It makes a lot of sense, and then you get some good moments in October and November, and then kind of fall off a little bit in December and onward. But I can also see a scenario where Russell Westbrook playing the role that he's supposed to play, which he hasn't really done a ton of in Los Angeles the last 3 years. He's playing next to LeBron James, playing next to James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and then when he was in LA, he was playing next to a bunch of point guards. That's difficult. It is not an easy thing to do. So I'm curious what it looks like. I'm curious what it looks like for Denver, and it might not be great, but keep in mind that Denver's bench has never been great. So if it's better, then maybe that's all you need to be. Finally, it just seems like everybody's looking forward to Abu Dhabi. Everybody's very excited. Michael Malone said that he was pushing for this trip. Here's how it works, actually. A team comes up in rotation. This isn't necessarily a thing where if the Nuggets decided that they didn't want to go to Abu Dhabi, then they'd be able to go to France next year, or Italy the year after that, or Serbia the year after that, or anything like that. This year was Denver's opportunity to go abroad. And you get an opportunity like this every 5 or so years. And the Nuggets said yes. They said that they wanted to do this. And Michael Malone said he was really pushing for it, not because it was Abu Dhabi specifically, but because it was a preseason adventure where the team could have a bonding experience, go and travel and get together and kind of stay attached. And that's one thing when you're traveling in a situation like this, you often do things as a team. You're on a 17-hour flight both ways. You are on like several team building activities during that time. You're going to go see sites. You're going to play some games. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I think that Michael Malone was really pushing for that. He said as much at practice today, just because he knows what it could mean for the team chemistry. And that's exciting. Like that this needs to happen, I think I don't know if that's a thing, but apparently this is multiple years in the making. So hopefully this is what Denver needs. Other teams have gone across the Atlantic and have not had great success. Maybe this is a different situation. I think Minnesota went across the pond this last year, and they obviously had a very successful playoff run. I think Dallas also went across the pond. So not a surprise. Not a surprise at all. All right, let's take another break. When we come back, we are going to chat about some dreamer takes. I'm going to come up with a new segment here, some what ifs. So what ifs for this Nuggets season that I am looking forward to. We'll be right back. But first, over the weekend, I had a great time at number 38. I'm not even kidding. Like, this was a great time to go watch the CU Buffs. They had a fantastic game against UCF and just were dominant. We've got some really good content up on the site right now that reflects that game. Just stuff that's going off. But number 38 played a great host for the Mile High Sports Watch Party, did a pregame podcast, was able to tune in and watch that, got myself a drink, got myself some lunch, and it was delightful. Just outdoor patio area, sitting in a comfortable chair, just enjoying drinks with friends and with some colleagues, and it was awesome. And if you're interested in doing something like that, interested in catching the next CU Buffs game, or maybe it's a Broncos game, or maybe it's a Nuggets game when it comes back around during the season, there will be plenty of time for that over at number 38 in Rhino, where they really take care of you. $15 pitchers, lots of great deals. Let them know that you came from Mile High Sports, and they will take care of you. We'll be right back on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, final segment. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. Saw some folks talking earlier about Locked On. Yeah, it's always interesting. Let me know what name you think that my show with Matt should have at that point. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to do too much promo for that particular show over here because, like, obviously want to keep everything kosher with everybody, but I am very excited to see where that goes. And yeah, just make sure to check out both podcasts. If you enjoy my work over here, make sure to check out my work over there too. All right. And Joe says, "Yeah, I'll get a drink with you, Ryan. Absolutely. We will see what happens with that. Uh, I- this upcoming Nugget season, there should be some times when I'm actually uh, heading over to number 38. Ryan the guy is pretty funny. That's a pretty good one. I like that. All right. Final segment, like I said, let's do some dreamer takes. The idea of this is if you saw the Marvel series What If, these are hypothetical scenarios that happen and just what the outcome would be if a certain event happens, if a certain event changes. And so this is my What If series for the Denver Nuggets. What if Russell Westbrook's good in his role? I think there's a lot of Lakers fans, especially, but Clippers fans and anybody um, that's basically saying that they've had Russell Westbrook before. They know how this thing goes. Everybody assumes that it's going to go badly, and I don't want to assume out of the gate. I would like to see what happens before jumping to conclusions because I think that Denver is better positioned to handle Russell Westbrook and what he brings to the table than somebody like the Lakers or somebody like the Clippers. Those teams are just not that good. And like Denver has a cut and dry role for what Russell Westbrook will be. There will be times where he plays into a larger role, and there are times where he doesn't. And there'll be times where, hey, he's only going to play 15 minutes off the bench because it didn't look good. It wasn't a solid game. And like there's times where Denver's going to need to win with the Jokic Murray two-man game. And how Russ impacts that, I'm not really sure. So we'll see what happens with it. But again, he was brought in on a minimum contract. This is not this massive obligation that the Nuggets have out to him. But I do think that there is at least a world where Russell Westbrook is solid and he just does what you want him to do. Roughly about like 9-10 points off the bench, 4 assists, 4 rebounds. Like, isn't that all that is? Like, it doesn't have to be that crazy. Just make sure that you're shooting reasonably efficiently and you're not turning the ball over a ton and committed to the defense. And that's all it really needs to be. So I think that there's a world where that happens. What if Jamal Murray is healthy and attacks the season early on? Jamal looked very quick. He looked very athletic in that scrimmage earlier today. Didn't have a lot of space to work with. Obviously, he's playing with Russ, playing with DeAndre, playing with Hunter Tyson. Not a ton of space. And yet he made it work and created some shots off the dribble and did exactly what he needed to in order to get some buckets. And I think that he still needs to be hunting the three a little bit more than he does. But if that's not the case, and if he just decides, hey, I'm healthy, I'm jittery, I'm quick, I'm athletic, I'm fast, if he's attacking and he's playing pretty consistently, there's a reason, like, why can't he be an all-star? Is there a reason why? Like, Paul George just went to the Eastern Conference. Other guys aren't necessarily going to be awesome all the time. And if the Nuggets are, in fact, a top 3 seed in the West again, somewhere in that general vicinity, why can't Jamal Murray be an all-star for this season if he takes a leap forward statistically? He's going to have to do that. He's going to have to be more consistent in order to make that happen. But I don't see why he can't do that. Like, get healthy, get better, play more consistent, and attack the regular season with some fury. I could see that happening. What if Michael Porter Jr. gets to the free throw line more often? This is one that I was talking about in segment 2. He's big. He looks very physical. He's one of those guys that sometimes you need to rewire your game a little bit. You need to think about things a little bit differently. And sometimes you need to put on 15 pounds so you can go to the rack and go draw some fouls. And that seems to be the latter for Mike. He's got to be able to have a solid handle in order to make it happen. He's got to be consistently trying to draw that contact, not shying away from it. But I think he can do both. I don't see a reason why he can't. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like with him. Is that a difference in mentality with the starters? Does he play with the bench a little bit more and gets aggressive? Is he somebody who's cutting a little bit more frequently and then drawing contact at the rim? I could see all of those things happening. And if he could get to the free throw line more, where he shoots over 80% from the line, wouldn't that be like a good thing for Denver? That's a like one thing that Denver really struggled with last year was both free throw attempts and free throw percentage. I'm pretty sure that they were last or second to last in free throws made per game. So that's one thing that they could absolutely improve as a team. Maybe Mike could be the captain of that. What if Dario Saric is just a 38% three-point shooter or better? Like, isn't that a possibility? Isn't that a thing where he did that last year, was very close to it? Why can't you just do that in Denver? And if you do that in Denver, if it's at about 38%, maybe 39%, it's a lot better than what Zeke Naji was providing at center. It's more spacing than what DeAndre Jordan is consistently providing at center. Isn't that going to open up the paint a lot more for guys like Peyton Watson to drive, for guys like Russell Westbrook to drive? Maybe it's Michael Porter or Jamal Murray staggering with the second unit. They could run some pick and pops, do some DHOs with somebody like Dario. If he's trustworthy enough to be able to handle those sets, maybe there's something to that. Maybe there's something to Denver being a little bit better on the bench than we previously thought that they could be. And I knew that they would be a little bit better. That's one of the reasons why they let go of KCP. So they took a small hit with their starting unit and they got better on the bench. I wonder what it looks like for some of these other guys too, but with Dario Saric, it's pretty easy. If you shoot the ball well, that's going to really help everybody. Absolutely going to help. What if Denver gets surprise contributions from their bench? Hunter Tyson? Was anybody really expecting Michael Malone to say the name Hunter Tyson in training camp this year? Maybe that's not by mistake. Maybe he is shooting the ball well. Maybe he's somebody that when he gets out into the game this year, it looks a little bit slower for him. He's finding his role a little bit more, doing more things on a consistent basis. And then on top of it, just hitting his shots. If he does hit his shots and finds a way to be impactful and spacing the floor for everybody, that could be another guy in the front court for Denver off the bench that could really make things a positive impact for guys like Russell Westbrook and Jamal Murray in the front court or in the backcourt. Same thing with Julian Strawther too. You want those guys to be able to drive into the lane without any concerns. And if Peyton Watson is out for any amount of time, I wonder if Hunter Tyson gets some run. I do think that Peyton Watson is still the guy that you want to depend upon, that you want to see what he can do. But maybe there's a world where he doesn't play all that consistently and Hunter Tyson steps in his place. Finally. Oh, and by the way, it doesn't just have to be Hunter Tyson. It could be Zeke Naji. It could be Trey Alexander as a two-way player. It could be probably not Spencer Jones. I don't really see him playing too much. Maybe it's DeAndre Jordan. Maybe they're playing Dario Saric a little bit at the 4, and they play DeAndre Jordan next to him, and he and Russ have some good chemistry. I don't know if that's what's ultimately going to happen. It's probably a little bit too old, a little bit too much veteran leadership on the floor at the same time, but who knows? Maybe this is something that can happen. Finally, what if the team is noticeably more hungry than last year? That was something that was said by Malone in this preseason earlier today. He said that Hunter Tyson was the one who came up to him and was like, it feels different. It feels different this year, and the team is acting different. There's a different level of energy. It's not just Russell Westbrook. It's that they have a different level of hunger, maybe a little bit more desire, a little bit more willingness to go the extra mile this year than they did last year, where they're coming off of a championship. Things are a little bit more tentative, don't necessarily have to work as hard. You know what you have. All you got to do is get to the regular season, get to the playoffs, etc. Maybe Jamal Murray's heading that up. Maybe Nikola Jokic is heading that up. Maybe these guys are doing everything that they need to do to set a good example on the court. And I know it's not more like vocal leadership from those guys, but it's certainly veteran leadership from those guys and setting an example for the entire rest of the team. Is Jamal Murray attacking these things and showing everybody how much he cares? Is Michael Porter doing the same thing? Is Russell Westbrook coming in and setting an immediate example for the players that have idolized him growing up? It does seem like this is happening. And that should excite a lot of people. That should absolutely excite people and think, yeah, this is a team that is being overlooked, that is being consistently pushed aside for other Western Conference playoff contenders at this point. Even with the Karl-Anthony Towns trade, I think most people have the T-Wolves as a stronger threat in the West than the Nuggets, which I think is interesting. But I do think that the Nuggets are in a good place. They're under the radar just a little bit. And I am hopeful that that was a wake-up call that they had last year and not the norm, and that everybody comes back and is ready to go and is hungry. Because if they go 15-5, 20-4 coming out of the break and sort of surprise everybody, that would be shocking. That would be quite the story for sure. I don't think anybody would be like people would be surprised about that. People would not be expecting that from Denver of all teams. Everybody thinks that Denver's going to kind of be under the radar, 13-7, 14-6, just in that general range where, yeah, they're clearly good. They're going to win 50-plus games, but are they great? It would be nice for the Nuggets to remind everybody that they can be great. All right. That is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline, number 38. Thank you for hanging out, everybody. Really, really appreciate it as always. Actually, Joe says he has an important question. I am not answering that question. That is not happening. If you're interested in seeing Joe's question, if you're listening on the audio side, make sure to go check out the YouTube chat right around the 42-minute mark. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. More shows coming. Maybe not tomorrow, but definitely Wednesday. We'll talk to you guys very soon.